Welcome to the Spunky Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Carrie Muggs. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Spunky Spirit. I am psychic medium Carrie Muggs. And this episode, we're going to talk about when your spouse or your significant other or someone important to you in your life is not on the same spiritual frequency as you. And I'm not saying this in you're a better person than them. It's just that spirituality is such a, what I mean by not same frequency is because nobody's ever on the same frequency, and nobody's more superior than anybody, and nobody's inferior than anybody. But we all are at different points of our spiritual journey. And sometimes when we are with somebody or our significant other or our loved ones when I say not same frequency, they don't have the same beliefs, or they're not going through the same spiritual awakening, or maybe they're in a religion that believes differently, and you're having all of these awakening experiences, and you're having all these downloads and these aha moments, and such a big change is happening in your life, and you start believing in things that, mediumship and psychic and past lives and Akashic records, and the person you are with is not or does not believe in that stuff. And so how do you navigate that? And how do you get through that? Because I've had lots of people that have, messaged me and said, my spouse is not on board with this, or my spouse doesn't believe this. Or how do you do that when the people you love are not, or don't believe, or are not on the same page? And so this is really a really hard thing. This probably will mostly be me sharing my own experiences with this, because this was such a chaotic time for me when I was going through this, because I thought that I was so crazy. And I was a certain religion when my gifts started to come out again. So they were there when I was little, but I kind of hid them, and I thought they were evil, and I joined a religion to make them stop. And then I hit rock bottom, and they came back tenfold, and then they just kept going and going. And so I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of my experience so you kind of know what to expect or how you can navigate your own, right? Because I don't ever want to condone marriages splitting or getting divorced over stuff like this, but I also don't want you to give up who you are. I want you to be authentically you and true to yourself, and sometimes you have to do that in a way that you have to be yourself without caring what your significant other thinks, or without letting that have a hold on you. So hopefully your significant other is still, even though they don't believe what you believe, or they are not on board with the same thing you believe in, hopefully they're still very supportive. Luckily, mine was supportive. So mine is totally on board now. My significant other, parts of my family are totally on board. But when I first started doing this, it wasn't like that. When I first started becoming a medium, when I first started doing it as a profession, when I first started, which is crazy, because when I met my husband now, it was funny because he told me about a Bigfoot that he had seen. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you believe in Bigfoot. But at the time then this is going to work. But at the time when we got married, I still was very much inside of a religion, of a church that I was very determined to stay in, because I thought that those were the answers. I thought that was for me. That was what I wanted to be. But honestly, I think it just led me to a part where it led me to this. It led me to the friends that I needed to have. It led me to other things, which led me to this. So even though it wasn't right for me, it was at that time. And so I want you to remember, everybody has their own journey. And even though what you believe in might not be right for them at this time, it will be eventually, or they might come around eventually. So don't ever give up. But if it's getting to the point where you cannot be who you truly want to be, if you've done everything you can and you've done the counseling and you've done all the things and you still can't be authentic, then you might want to. But that's like last resort. You might want to look into what's best for you and your belief system. But that's like only if you've tried all of the other things. Because I started feeling so guilty when I kind of started leaving or having disbeliefs in the church that we were going to, because when we got engaged and when we got married, we made this commitment to each other, and the church that we belonged to was heavily involved in that commitment. And so when I started to figure things out by myself, or figure things out that weren't quite fitting with me or quite go, and I started to tap into my abilities, and I started to tap into them stronger, and I knew my direction was different. It was a little struggle for a couple years because I could feel him pulling away. I could feel him being stressed out about it because of his past experiences, and this religion was very deeply embedded in his family. And so I kind of just had to let him do his own thing. I knew I was going to do my thing. And at first, we even kind of hid what I did from his family. And so, because I didn't want any pressure on him or any stress, but it got to the point where they found out because it was getting too big. And so what changed him is he was very supportive to me. And he didn't really want me to quit my full-time job to do mediumship readings. And I just finally was like, I have to. It's what I have to do. And I finally could prove to him that my mediumship readings were actually bringing in more money than my full-time job. And then something happened at my full-time job, and because you know how when Spirit or God says, you weren't going to move, so I had to force it. So something happened with some coworkers, and I knew it was my time to leave. And so I went and I started crying, and I said, I can't do this anymore. He says, it's okay if you leave. Not that he was being bossy to me and telling me, but we were in a relationship, right? And just feel like that leaving my job, because we had 7 kids at home. So leaving my job and going to work, going to do a different job was something I felt like we needed to talk to together. I wanted him to be on board because I respected him. It wasn't about him controlling me. If I just would have been like, you know what, I'm quitting and leaving, he would have been scared to death, but he would have honored me in that too. But we as a couple decided that that's what was going to happen. And so then he kind of saw that my business started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people were tapping into my gift or loving my gift or coming for healing. And that's a whole different thing. But so then COVID happened, and because I could tell before that he was struggling. He was struggling because I had stopped going to our church, and he would still go. And I know people would ask him all the time, how is Carrie? And they would feel sorry for him and all this stuff. And I felt bad. And I did at times wonder if we were going to make it through it. Not because we didn't love each other, but because I knew it was important to him. I knew that this was kind of a thing that was important to the relationship, and it was his life. It was something he was born and bred throughout his whole life. And so COVID happened, and we stayed home, and he didn't have to go to church anymore. And then he started looking into what fit for him and he realized that most of all of his anxiety was gone. And he started to think, well, God shouldn't give us anxiety. Spiritualness shouldn't give you anxiety. And so he kind of started looking into it on his own, which has to happen, you guys. You can't push your loved one into a belief system. You have to let them do it on their own. You have to let them do this journey on their own. You can't force them. You can't tell them. You can say, you can give them an ultimatum, but at the same time, they're just going to end up resenting you. You have to be able to let him has his faith journey, or your spouse have their faith journey, and you have your faith journey. And hopefully you are helpful to each other and not vindictive, not because spirituality is hard because it's such a huge thing in people's lives that it plays such an important part in some religions' lives and in some spirituality lives. And if you go to, a very, very religious person and say, I believe in past lives, I believe in star seeds, I believe in, they're going to think you're crazy. And so, but you're not crazy because this is your belief, right? If you can believe in those things but they can believe in, things that it's kind of hard because I don't want to put down any religion, right? But if they believe in a spirit that they trust in, it's just hard because I believe in Jesus. I didn't want this to become a religious thing. I do believe in God and Jesus, but I believe them in a different capacity than what normal religious capacities believe them in. I believe Jesus was here to teach us what we are capable of doing and very much loves us, but I don't feel like he was here to be worshiped, and I feel like he was here to help and love, and it is all unconditional and he does love. But I just also don't believe that he is it has to be obedient. It has to be his way. It has to be it's a hard thing. But if your significant other does believe that, then it can clash, right? And your relationship can clash. And so spirituality might be something that you don't talk about for a while. You don't talk about it, even though it's super important. Your relationship is between you two, and it's not something that's based on, if it was started based on a spiritual foundation, then that's going to be tough. But if it wasn't started based on a spiritual foundation and it was based on your love for each other, then that's going to be a whole other ballgame. So it just depends on how your relationship started. Now with me, he did slowly start to believe. He still started, there's some things, we'll watch movies sometimes or we'll watch documentaries and they'll talk about different aspects of spirituality, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that, and oh yeah, I that's true, and he'll be like, what, you knew that? How come you didn't tell me? And I'm like, because I want you to be on your own spiritual journey. I want you to find it. I don't want to just take my beliefs and throw them on you and make you keep them. So I'm not going to lie, this is a really tough situation. If you are in it and you are in it right now, all I can tell you is just have patience and trust that this is your journey. Trust that this is their journey. Trust that it's going to work out. And if it does get to the point, where you've tried everything and you've gone to counseling and you've tried to talk about it and it becomes almost a controlling thing, then I would maybe suggest looking into where you're truly happy, because you are here to find joy. And even though your joy is not dependent on other people, your spouse and your significant other has a whole big part of that. And if they can't at least accept that you're on this journey and that your spiritual growth is different, then that might be an issue, because spiritual growth is so important to your growth. And if that you've got someone that's holding you back or someone that's stopping you, you can only be patient for so long, right? So I just feel bad because I just remember the torment and the chaos that would be inside me when I first started coming out. Not only because I was so scared of what other people would think of me, but because I had promised my husband that I was going to be in this religion forever and that I was going to do, it was based on that religion. And so I didn't blame him if he didn't want to stay in it, if it wasn't going to be what he thought. And so there was lots of conversations and lots of loving and understanding. And I know there are people in our lives that think that I forced this on him or I subjected him to this, but he did this all on his own. I let him have his own journey. And you know what? I was very, very blessed and very, 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 very blessed that he came around, or he came into his own spiritual journey. And we're still not on the same page. we kind of are on the same page, but there's still things he's learning that he's like, oh my gosh, that's still crazy. And there's still things that I see from spirit or during readings or that I learned, and I'm like, ooh, I'm not going to tell him that because he's going to think that's crazy. And then like 3 or 4 weeks later, he's telling me about this podcast he listened to, and this is what he found. I'm like, yes. So sometimes it works out. I mean, most of the time it's going to work out. Most of the time it works out. I promise you, no matter how it ends, it's going to work out. But working out, if you would have told me in the beginning that this was how it's going to work out for me, back then I would have thought that's scary, or that's not, that's super scary. But now it's like the best thing ever. So have lots of patience with those people that are around you that don't ever let them demean you or belittle you because of your beliefs or tease you. Don't give them that control, and create boundaries there. Create boundaries that protect you so you don't feel like you're inferior or you feel like you're crazy, because if they make you feel like that, that's not okay. But what you need to do is just maybe have lots and lots of talks about where you're at and where you see this going, and if your spiritual significance or your spiritual beliefs have an effect on the bottom line of your relationship, and or if it's something that you can deal with. If it's something, and if your significant other says, well, I just don't want you to talk about it around me, then that's okay. Don't talk about it around them. And if it has to do, where it gets kind of complicated is when it's your kids and you're kind of trying to teach the kids one thing and teach the kids the other thing. And that's why blended marriages and religions are really hard. And I feel bad because there is no one fits all kind of thing. But at the end of the day, the one thing that does matter is that you matter. And it's not selfish. It's that you need to be true to who you are. And if that is sticking to your beliefs at whatever cost, that means sticking to your beliefs at whatever cost. And if your significant other doesn't allow that, then I would look into, but you got to make sure too, because you got to make sure that you are being supportive of his beliefs and supportive of, so when my husband would still go to church, or my husband still wanted to do certain things that religion required, I let him do it, because even though I didn't want to, I let him do his thing, because I had to honor his spiritual beliefs. So if you can get in a place where you can honor each other's spiritual beliefs, but not make fun of them and not make somebody feel inferior because of them, you're going on the right track. If that does involve that you feel inferior or superior, then that's when you've got to probably go to counseling or seek out some sort of middle ground. And that's what's going to be the hardest. But I promise you, if you have patience, a lot of times it will work out. A lot of times you'll start to be on the same page, or you'll just understand you'll understand it with each other. You'll understand where they're coming from, and they'll understand where you're coming from. If you have enough love for somebody that you can let them believe how they want and do what they want as far as the spiritual realm, then it should be okay. I know every situation is different, and I was one of the lucky ones where I was supported. Even though the beliefs were different, I was supported, I was loved. I do know that he kind of felt like maybe it was his fault. He did kind of take on some of the blame of me not wanting to be part of it anymore, part of this church or religion, and he felt like it was his, but that was because of past things that had happened in other relationships with him. It wasn't about me. And so you really have to work on it. Like, that's why I think that counseling would be a really good idea. Someone that you can talk to about your beliefs and know that you're not crazy and understand you, and be able to go home and still be felt loved and listened to and heard. And just know that sometimes you're not going to be able to share your experiences. You're not going to be able to share your experiences with your loved one, because they're not going to understand. So if you go to a past life reading and they give you this awesome reading, And you can't go home and share it with your significant other, right? Because you know that they won't believe, they'll think it's kind of stupid, and but that's okay because eventually they will. So I was kind of in the same boat with mine. But then one day for his birthday, I got him a palm reading. He was very receptive. He loved it, and that helped him go forward, right? Because he was open-minded and it was an awesome experience. So be kind to yourself, give yourself grace. Know that there are so many people out there that are going through this same thing. But honor their journey. Don't try and push them into anything that they're not ready for, but make sure that they honor yours at the same time, and you feel honored. So you might have to have those hard conversations. And even though you might not be able to share all your experiences spiritually with them yet, then just know that you find somebody that you can find, some like-minded people that you can be around, that you can share your experiences and have the same kind of effect, because that will help a lot. And then you won't feel like you're so crazy. So I love you guys so much. And I hope that this helps, because there's nothing harder, I think, than being with somebody or in a relationship that this is where you don't see eye to eye. And I promise you, there are so many relationships out there that go through this, because whether you are in a certain religion and have a faith crisis and one of you leaves and one of you wants to stay, or if one of you has an awakening and the other one's not like on board with that, or these new beliefs come in, it's hard because awakenings change people, faith crises change people, and so it's hard on the one that isn't changing, and it's hard on the one that is changing, because there's a significant difference. But I promise you, if you work together and you have somebody who's very supportive and you're supportive of them, you can work through this. If there's somebody that is not supportive and will not see it, then that's going to be a whole different story. And that's going to be hard to be your authentic self and be who you truly are. So you're going to have to dig deep and see how you're going to navigate that, because nothing's worse than going through life not being who you are authentically. And so I'm just saying, if there's somebody in your life that's like controlling enough that they choose that for you, then you need to maybe look at how that's going to affect you. Okay. I love you guys so much. And I'm trying to think. I do have a class this week called Step It Up. It's on Thursday night. It's in Idaho Falls. It is local. I think I do have a few spots left. So Thursday night from 6 to 9, it's teaching you how to step into your power, use your gifts, define your gifts, and not be scared of your gifts, and to be who you are. Be who you are and be able to connect to yourself and to spirit. So, and then the week after that, I do have an online class, learning about your guides. And if you took my guides class in locally, then it's the same class. You don't need to take it. But if you couldn't take it and you want to take it from online, if you're not local, then that would be great. So I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you next week.